The world now is very different from before the film came out. He is misleading a huge bunch of people. He wants to have the same freedom like the drunk guy in the pub, and that's now not how things work if you're a professional in the media landscape. And he's got to learn that.
Hey everybody, this is Klaus from Plant-Based News and with vegan strongman Patrik Baboumian. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
So you've kind of been on my radar for a while now because we re-uploaded one of your videos a couple of months before the Game Changers came out. That was a documentary executively produced by James Cameron that you were in. Before that came out, you actually did a video about being misrepresented in a Joe Rogan podcast. Do you want to explain briefly what happened?
Yeah, so there are actually a lot of videos or a lot of YouTube channels who talk smack about me on YouTube, but I usually don't react to everything. But in this case, it was on the Joe Rogan show, and the guy has a huge following. Is I think one of the biggest platforms out there. His guest was Robert Oberst, who is a Strongman competitor. From the US, and they were like, it was not just a slight kind of mistake that they did, but they were completely representing everything that I do.
Eats from 1 meal a day.
See, this is ridiculous. 1 meal a day and vegan.
I agree. That's ridiculous. Joe is talking about something that I have never done. He's obviously just making things up, or he just taking information about other people and just projecting that on me.
All the strongmen that I've seen are giants.
Right.
Well, he's only 5'7", so he's smaller than me.
It's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog.
What they tried to do there was they tried to use this attack on me to kind of debunk the Game Changers, because
Before it come out.
Yeah, it wasn't even out. The only thing that they had seen, or that Joe Rogan had seen, was a trailer, and he was trying to debunk the film on the basis of that trailer.
It's gender-led, wasn't it? They were trying to say that the film was sort of, I think one of the quotes was lies built on lies before it would come out. So yeah.
Yeah. They were trying to delegitimize it basically before anyone would really have a chance to watch it, which is, of course, that's a very malicious way to, approach something like that, especially if you have the responsibility that Joe has. When you have such a big platform, he talks on his show a lot about, free speech and how everyone is so politically correct, and that's terrible and so on. But the point is, it is something different if you're just a guy in a pub who talks smack, and that's, that's fine.
You've got a platform and you're intelligent, or supposedly, then...
Exactly. So Joe is not stupid. He knows exactly what he does. He's got a huge platform, so that's a huge responsibility, because if he does stuff that is misleading, he is misleading a huge bunch of people. So at some point you have to acknowledge that, and he doesn't do that. He wants to have the same freedom like the drunk guy in the pub, and that's now not how things work if you're a professional in the media landscape, and he's got to learn that.
Would he go on the podcast?
I think it would have made sense, because I have kind of a history with Joe, so that would have made sense. But at the same time, I think it would have probably not been a good decision, because of course the history that I have with Joe is a little bit toxic. So I mean, we had James just on his own on the podcast, and he did a great job just basically exposing Chris Kresser for what he is, namely someone who talks a lot about nutrition, but doesn't really have a very profound knowledge about nutrition.
Do you know how to read a forest plot? Yes or no?
I don't.
Forest plot? You don't know how to read a forest plot? Yeah.
I don't know the details.
So,
I'm
sorry. It's almost like comedy.
Based on what you presented, you haven't lost an argument yet. There's not one thing that you've said that's incorrect.
But you don't know how to read a forest plot.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because yesterday he put out a post on his Instagram about having lost weight, having done the carnivore diet for a month, and he says he feels great. So what do you kind of say back to that? Do you give any credibility to his claims?
I absolutely think that you can have short-term benefits with all kinds of crazy, nonsensical diets, even with the carnivore one. The question is, what is it going to do with you on the long term? And if you take weight loss as a metric for for a diet, if it's good or not, I think that's a very misleading metric, because you can be on cocaine and a terrible diet, you're going to lose weight, and that's not going to be good for you. So just because a diet makes you lose weight, that doesn't mean anything. And even if it makes you feel good, the cocaine is going to make you feel good. So you have to look at the diet long term, and you have to ask the questions that you ask have to be scientific, and you have to look at it in a neutral way if you really want to find out what's the best diet. Of course, for me, when it comes to diet, it's not only that part, which is objectively finding out what's the best diet, but also I look at things like, what is the environmental effect? What is the ethical considerations around the diet? And all of that goes into my decision which diet I want to adapt as my own, which leads me to veganism. But at the end of the day, I think one thing that is important is, when I look to how the world looked like before Game Changers came out and how it looks like now, what I think, and especially if you look at the attempts to attack the film actually and criticize it, what you see is that most of these people who are attacking the film, most of them don't even dare to say that it is not possible to be successful as a vegan athlete, and they would do that before the film came out. So they just basically moved the goalpost, and what they're saying now is, yeah, it is possible, but it's really complicated, and it's going to be easier if you're not vegan. And I think that says a lot, because these are the most extreme people who are really trying to fight against veganism, and even they now acknowledge that you can do it. It's going to probably be a little bit harder, which I would disagree with, because it depends on how you look at things. Of course, if you have been not vegan your whole life and you're not willing to learn a new thing, it's going to be hard. It's hard to do stuff that you haven't done before. But if you're a little bit flexible, and if you are willing to learn new stuff, and if you're willing to do something that is not what everyone else does, but you're willing to do that journey, it's not hard at all. I never found it hard or complicated or anything. And I can say that I had my best results after being vegan for half a decade.
What year was that?
That was 2016. So
that was when the Game Changers was filmed with that scene, correct?
Yeah, a lot of. So the Game Changers was filmed over a lot of years. So my earliest scene actually, or one of my earliest scenes, is from 2013, and that's actually what you see in the end of the film. So that huge yoke thing, that high energy thing in the end of the film, that's actually from 2013. But we also have stuff from 15 and so on. But at the end of the day, my personal records that I set in the deadlift and in the squat and in all big lifts, I set them all in 2016. And that's 5 years after going vegan. And I've been vegetarian 6 years before that. So meat has been not a part of my life for a very long time at that point. And I've been vegan for half a decade. So you can't attribute anything of what I did in 2016 to some glass of milk that I had that I was drinking half a decade before that. Film has really changed people's perception in form of a huge landslide. Actually, I think the world now is very different from before the film came out. And I think a lot of stuff is going to now happen because I feel like we're approaching the tipping point where everything is getting so much easier, and this toxic kind of negativity from certain people out there is going to get less and less because they feel less and less emboldened to be toxic, because they just see, well, I can't go out and tell everyone it's not possible if people are doing it every day. So I'm excited to see what happens in the next few years.
It's really inspiring hearing that. Are you still competing?
So I stopped competing in 2016. So when I say I did all my personal records there, that was right before I had an injury. I tore my tricep at the World Championships in log lift in 2016. That was in summer 16. And right before that was basically where I set all my records. So that injury happened like on the height of my performance level. So I had to have surgery done, and then it took me half a year where I couldn't even use that arm. And then, as I said, it was already meant to be the last competition, because so what a lot of people might not know is that I started actually training and competing when I was 14. So at this point in 2016, I'm competing for almost a quarter of a decade, a quarter of a century. Yeah, so that, of course, over all these years, there's a lot of stuff accumulating, little injuries here and there. And so I could feel that I was, most of my effort was not going into trying to get better, but it was going to trying to navigate around all these old injuries and stuff. So I thought it would be a good time to call it a day and then focus on other things. Also knowing that the film would come out, it was actually planned that it would come out in 17 already. So I was, with that in mind, I was thinking I'm going to now focus on promoting the film and stop doing competitions. So right now I'm training. I have a lot of fun training, so I don't think I'm going to stop training at any point.
You just do it for fun?
Yeah, I do it for fun, and I try to kind of, keep like 80% of my strength level, or as much as I can. But at the same time, I weigh way less because I'm, constantly trying to lose weight, because I don't need all that mass that I need for competitions in everyday life. So I try to have a more functional body for just normal stuff.
What do you squat?
My best squat was, I don't know, in kilos is 370 kilos.
One rep, or
that's a max rep.
Wow. And what would you do? What would you do now if you were to this morning?
Well, right now I'm a little bit handicapped due to a slight misalignment in my hips. But the heaviest session in the last few months that I did was 330 kilos, and that was a very easy rep. So I'm not that far away from back then. But that 370 was in 2016. That's what I meant with, my highest numbers. That's all from 16.
Wow. Just the last couple of questions. What does the next few years look like for you?
Well, right now I'm basically focusing completely on activism. So I'm doing a lot of events where I just give talks and try to basically just use all these experiences that I have from the years competing as a vegan strength athlete, and try to just get as many ears as possible and try to get that out to people. At the same time, promoting the film, of course, and that's going to be something I'm going to probably spend the next 2 years still trying to help promote the Game Changers. Because you have to think now it's it's available everywhere, but at the same time we can still do a lot offline. Like, for instance, one thing that I'm planning to do is I have a lot of requests from universities, for instance, to give a talk there. So I'm using these opportunities to show the film there and basically use the film as a tool to get that information to as many people as possible.
Would you do WWE if they approached you?
I was actually a fan of wrestling when I started training, so I don't know. Depends on the money.
Any closing remarks? Thank you so much for your time. Any final thoughts, or where can people find your stuff?
If you're interested in the stuff that I do, I'm actually on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. So social media, it's pretty easy to find me on Patrik Baboumian. And then I have a small online store where you can get, like T-shirts and and my books and stuff like that. It's veganbadass.com. And other than that, I just really hope that. So for me, basically, what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to take away people's irrational fears and uncertainty that they feel towards going vegan. Mainly, it's guys. So I'm trying to help them basically get rid of that fear to lose manliness or anything. And I feel like that goal is very close to being achieved in huge parts of society, and that makes me very happy. So thanks to everyone who is a part of that. I mean, like for you guys with your platform are a huge part of that. And as I told you, I'm always happy if you take a bunch of my content and just spread it.
Yeah, because off camera we reposted one of your videos, and I was just saying to you off camera that it was easier for us because we titled it "Vegan Strongman like slams Joe Rogan," and you would never put that on your platform. So it's just, it's great to collaborate, and thank you for everything that you do.